Hello, and welcome to this week's Profit Maximizing Moment. The show is dedicated to helping business owners dramatically improve their bottom line with our weekly profit maximizing tips that you can use now. I'm your host and coach, Wayne Bilal. I'm also the founder of a local CPA firm that works with business owners to help them make more money and keep more of it from the IRS. I do this all with our profit coaching programs and with our tax planning system, which has saved my clients over $7 million over the last 5 years, all legally. We're in the middle of tax planning season now, which is why today's topic is year-end tax tips that can save real estate investors thousands of dollars. Look, 2 weeks ago, we talked about why, go see that video if you haven't before, why tax planning is so important. Last week, we went over a ton of different things that you can use for tax planning for businesses. Now, if I didn't say it before, I'm sure I have. This is pretty general. Okay, you really need to get with a tax professional to go over and see how this works for you. All right. Today, but first, support for today's show is brought to you by Profit Maximizing Publisher, which published my book, The 90-Day Profit Reset, which shows you how to gain your independence from reduced cash flow, shrinking margins, and an evaporating customer base. In this book, you will find chapter after chapter, idea after idea about how you can turn around your business and reset your profits from red to black in 90 days or fewer, even if you're making good money. That's a book you really want to get, especially now when things are getting pretty tough. But first, look, real estate has been a very popular investment for a long time. Rental properties in particular can be a source of income with many income tax benefits. In particular, real estate can provide tax-deferred income stream due to the deduction of non-cash expense called depreciation. Additionally, real estate provides many methods of transferring income to family members who could be in a lower tax bracket. Another reason investors love real estate is it's historically provided an inflation hedge, which we're in the middle of an inflation period again. I thought wouldn't see this since I was literally first married, late 70s, early 80s. Unfortunately, very few taxpayers actually take advantage of all the tax benefits that real estate offers. Here's a list and a very brief description of the tax benefits available. Now, look, like I said, when we do tax planning, I run it through a program that kicks out 1,700 different strategies. Of course, not all of them apply. A lot of them are in real estate, and not all of these are going to apply. But again, they're tricky. There's a lot going on. Make sure you get with a tax professional. This is in no way meant to be tax advice. I'm basically not specifically for you. All right. So first, maximize depreciation deduction. Depreciation cuts taxable income from rental real estate by deducting the cost of your investment over a period of time. Residential, that's 27 and a half years. For commercial, it's 39 years. So if I spend money, buy $300,000 rental duplex, quadruplex, or $150,000, $200,000 house, if it's residential, I get to take that and write off the non-land portion over 27 and a half years. All right. And now I should be able to get a deduction. Unless now there's such a thing as called as passive activities. Man, I'll tell you, the world's gone bonkers today. Let me shut that down so it stops bothering me. Sorry, guys. It's like, geez, the watch is nice, but sometimes it just gets in the way. Passive losses back in 1986, the Congress put income into three buckets. You had an earned income, W-2s, businesses that you run. You had investment income, stocks, bonds, interest, savings, things like that. And then you had passive losses. They didn't take any work, so that's like rental. Biggest one is rental depreciation, but it can be investments and partnerships where you're not the active partner or a corporation. All right. What that meant is the losses in this passive category can't be used to offset income in other categories unless you hit some certain things. So before you spend a lot of money and create a loss in your rentals, make sure you can use it. Okay. But we're going to go through this, and I'm not going to discuss passive again because it's a very complicated thing. When you have a property, especially if it's commercial, all right, divide your property into land improvements, and building structures. Land is never depreciated, but land improvements generally can go for 15 years or less. You got 15 years, you got curbs, sidewalks, driveways, parking lots, landscaping, lighting, site concrete, site piping. It gets very complicated, okay? In current rules, up until the end of this year, you can deduct it at 100%. Then it starts to slowly go down until it's eliminated in in 2026, if I remember correctly off the top of my head. But this year I can deduct it 100%. The building structure, make sure you divide that between the building structure and personal property, which is appliances, cabinets, countertops. You can deduct 100%. Carpeting, fire suppression, PA, sound system, signage. Look, one of the things you might want to do is if you have a property, especially a commercial property, even if you did residential, you should be able to separate these and you can get a quicker write-off, which cuts your taxes. If you have a commercial property worth 500,000 or more, you really want to look at a cost segregation report. Give me a call. I can hook you up with somebody who does that. This basically is an engineering CPA legal firm that comes in and takes pictures, looks at the plan, and splits out the parts that you can get fast depreciation on. I've seen that type of study that we've used for some of our clients save hundreds of thousands in taxes. So that's worth looking at. If you're doing any land improvements or adding personal property, try to get it before the end of the year so that you get 100%. But watch out for passive loss rules, okay? Properly allocating expenditures between repairs and improvements can make a big difference. Repairs are what's required to keep your property in good condition, but do not add to the value of the property or extend its life. These include things like painting the building, replacing broken windows, repairing broken plumbing, things like that. Those are 100% deductible, okay? Take advantage of the safe harbor for small taxpayers, all right? This is a SHST. I didn't swear or spell it out. This is a great tax saving opportunity for smaller landlords. If you qualify, you can deduct on your return for your annual expenses for repairs, maintenance, and improvements for your rental building, even things that maybe should be depreciated. So let's go like direct expenses means the lesser of $10,000 or 2% of the building cost. So if you bought a building for $100,000, 2% is $2,000. I get to deduct that. I don't, even if it should be depreciated. Okay. Routine maintenance, make sure you can deduct every year. The repair must be something that is expected to occur more than once every 10 years, kind of a general rule. Expenses under $2,500 can be deducted rather than capitalized. Take advantage of any tax credits that are out there for real estate investors. The two bigger ones are disabled access credit and the rehabilitation tax credit. Okay. For historic buildings. So those are tricky. Not even going to get into those, but keep them in mind if you think that's something that might, if you do some work in a historic building or if you do some work so that, ADA, so, for disabilities, you might be able to get a credit for it. Check with your tax provider. Hire your spouse to manage your rental properties. This can give you a lot of advantages, but can give you a lot of disadvantages too. Be careful with that one. You're going to turn which is income that's not subject to Social Security into something that could be. But you might be able to offset that by putting a pension plan in there, medical reimbursement plan, education benefits. You really need to be careful with these. So make sure you get with a tax preparer. Same thing with hiring your child. Now, again, if you're in a higher than 15% tax bracket, then this makes sense because it's a different taxpayer. The first 12,000 something, it goes up every year, could be up to 13,000 is tax free. The next close to 10,000 is only at 10%. So you might be able to pay them. Now, don't get greedy. They actually have to do the work. If you only have one property, it's hard to pay them 20,000 to manage it. Okay. So, but every little bit helps. All right. If they're under 18, you don't even have to pay Social Security and Medicare unless you're a corporation or an LLC. Then you might have a different animal. So again, a lot of rules here you got to be careful about. If you have an IRA, a Roth IRA, or some other retirement plan that you're there, there's a possibility of using it to invest in real estate or related real estate investments like mortgages, notes, tax liens. The key, you got to find a trustee who offers true self-directed IRAs. That's key, self-directed IRAs, so that you can make sure you don't mess up with any IRS rules. The biggest one most taxpayers are going to run into is that you and your spouse can exclude up to $500,000 in a home sale gain. That's where you actually live in the property for at least 2 out of the last 5 years. You basically can see where you're having you can exclude that $500,000. You have to, now there's exceptions if you have a house and you're forced to move because of military, medical. There's a bunch of other things. You might get a proration. Okay. I've seen investors actually, especially flippers, that I got one guy in particular I'm thinking of. He was a handyman. So he would buy a house that needed to be fixed up and live in it while he was working and fixing it on weekends. After 2 years, he'd sell it, have a gain. It's tax free. And another guy that had his house and a couple of vacation homes. When they retired, they sold their house in El Paso, went to one in somewhere else, and lived there 2 years, sold it, went somewhere else, lived there 2 years, and sold it. Now, if it was a rental property, be careful. You still have some taxable that you have to recapture. Which, on the same subject, don't lose your $500,000 write-off. I've seen people who, especially after 2008, when the real estate market was in shambles, they could have sold it, at least got some money, but they held on to it and ended up renting it. Once you no longer have lived in it in 2 out of the last 5 years, you've lost that $500,000. So my advice has often been to go ahead and sell the house and use the proceeds that are tax free. Buy one or two, houses that you can do as a rental. If you do sell a house that's going to be taxable, consider using the installment sale if you have to. Could see that happening more as interest rates go up. Trust me. 1031 exchanges are a powerful tool. This is basically, you might have heard it called a like-kind exchange. It basically has to be only for real estate. You usually need a qualified intermediary. You get a real estate attorney that knows what they're doing. This is usually going to be a title company. You have to roll all the proceeds from the property you're selling to buy in the replacement property. If you receive cash, you're going to have part of it as a taxable event. Okay. Or, if you receive any other non-like kind property, or if mortgage relief in the exchange. The exchange doesn't have to happen exactly at the same time. You have 45 days after you sell your property to relinquish, after you relinquish your original property, to identify the replacement, and an additional 135 days to actually close. So 45 days to identify, 6 months to close. You can exchange properties as many times as you want for nearly an unlimited tax deferral. I've seen people. I had one guy who basically had like 10, 12 pieces of property, got up in age, didn't want to manage them, did a 1031 exchange into a piece of raw land, which ended up becoming very valuable. That was another savings. Is instead, don't gift your property to your kids. If you're thinking about giving it to them, put it in your will. Then they get it. And instead, if you bought it for $50,000 and it's worth $200,000, if you gift it to them, they're going to have $150,000 gain if they sell it. If you put it in your will, they get their tax basis or tax cost is what it was worth when you passed away. So if it's worth 200, they can sell it for 200. It's tax free. So that's why real estate has a lot of cool things in it. Another thing I've seen people pull off, which is interesting, don't sell it. I know one guy used to do this periodically. He would, and it's gotten a little harder after 2008, but it's still possible if you get a hold of it. Instead of selling a property, I saw one guy basically borrowed $100,000. Mortgage was already paid off on his property. Used $40,000 to fix up the property, increased the rent enough to pay the mortgage. Now his cash flow is in the same place, and he pocketed $60,000. It's not income because it's a loan. Loans are not taxable. All right. Pay your property taxes before the end of the year. I'm not going to get into much more. There's a lot here. I'm not going to get into some of the crazy stuff. If you can, and you have losses, and the passive losses don't let you deduct them, because see if you and or your spouse can become a real estate professional. A lot of tricky rules there. Don't do that without any help. So I'm going to say this at the risk of sounding like a broken record. This area is very complicated, filled with many rules and exceptions. Ask your tax advisor if any of these are advantageous strategies for you and whether you can get away with it. That's it for today. I went a little longer than I intended to. Went through it very, very, very fast. So make sure you get with somebody that knows what they're doing, that's done this a while, keep you out of trouble. All right. Until next time, this is Wayne Blau saying, let's make this our most profitable year ever. It's tax planning time, so start thinking about it. Have a good day.